I'm Zoe. I'm a 6th grader at Nauset Middle School. We are at the Hague Conservation Center. Today we'll be exploring the woods and learning about tree identification. Here's a list of things you will need today. A tape measure, your data form, your tree identification guide, your iPad, and bags and index cards to collect samples. Download data forms and tree identification sheets at brewsterconservationtrust.org under the Explore tab. While out exploring, we'll be making the same kind of observations that a botanist would make. We'll be observing and recording things like, is the bark rough or smooth? Does it have needles or leaves? What does the oak leaf look like? And does it have opposite or alternating branches? Before we start our hike, I want to introduce Don Schall. He's a Brewster Conservation Trust volunteer and local botanist. One question I have for him is, what does a botanist do?
Hi, I'm Don Schall. I'm a botanist. I'm also a biologist and ecologist. And what I do as a botanist is I explore the woodlands on Cape Cod and most of New England looking for plants to identify. And today we'll do an introduction to some of the trees that are here in this Brewster woodland. And the information we have to collect, we have to look at the bark, we have to look at the branching arrangement, we have to see whether it has needles or leaves, and we need to record if we see any life on it. So, if we're ready to start, we're going to go out into the woods and see what we can find. All right, here's two of the leaves that we found that are really quite common in the leaf litter, which is very important as these leaves break down, adding to the nutrients to the soil. But this leaf here on the right is from a scarlet oak, and this leaf here is from a white oak. And I know that because when I look at the ends of these lobes, I find little hairs or bristle tips on the scarlet oak, and they're absent. It's more like the tip of your finger or the end of your thumb on the white oak. And I know that this leaf here, from the white oak leaf, came from this tree, which is a white oak. This one here, which we identified as a scarlet oak leaf, I know this came from this tree here, where the bark is tighter, relatively dark, and also some lichen growth on it, which is one thing you're going to be able to add and put on your clipboard when you're trying to characterize your tree. The scarlet oak is common, usually in open woodland, the edges of the forest. But we know that that was the scarlet oak because how deep it's lobed here into the sinus, which is this area where the leaf is pushed in. These are two of the more common evergreen trees that we find, and both of them are pines. And the way I can tell them apart is I just pick off a little bundle of needles, which is just a cluster of leaves. And when I pull the one little cluster off, and I go through and count it, I see that there are 5 needles. So since there's 5 needles and white has 5 letters in it, I know this is a white pine. And they're very soft, sort of gentle, flexible needles. This other pine that has a few pine cones on it, this, if I break the needle off, it's thicker, heavier, sort of more durable. But when I break that apart, it only has 3 needles that I can count. And what I do to remember this is that you're allowed 3 strikes if you're playing baseball, and that's a pitch, 3 pitches. So 3 needles, I remembered it as pitch pine.
So this here is a black cherry, and there are 3 main ways that you can tell that something is a black cherry. So the first way is looking at the branching, and that's alternating. And so are the buds. The buds are also alternating. Once you know what a black cherry bud looks like, it's really easy to tell that it's a black cherry bud. And then if you just scrape off some of the bark on a branch, when you can see the green part on the inside, if you smell it, it smells bitter, and it's like really easy to tell that it's bitter and really distinct. So that's another way that you can tell. And then the last way is there's this black fungus that grows on the cherry. It's called black knot, and that grows on this tree. And when you see that fungus, you can tell that it's a black cherry. because this grows on the black cherry. We will use our data sheets to record what we see and collect small samples to take back to the classroom or home. In addition to collecting samples, it is also important to use an iPad or a camera to take pictures of the tree. You can take close-ups of bark or the whole tree. You can also take pictures of leaves. Be sure to remember to fill out your tree identification sheet. Remember to draw the leaf, do a bark rubbing, note if the leaves are attached alternating or directly opposite, and sketch it. And then note any insects, lichen, or the color of the bark. So now I'm going to measure the diameter of this tree. I have 2 planks and I have a tape measure. You might need a friend to help if you're having trouble holding the tape measure. You're going to put the 2 planks next to the tree. I see that there's 8 inches between the 2 of them, so that's what the diameter of the tree is. Alright, so now I'm going to see how high this tree is. It's about 6 feet from the ground to this branch. So now I'm going to guess how many of those fit on the tree. So if there's about 5 or 6 of those, I'm going to say, I don't know, like 36 feet. So that's how tall the tree is. When you get back to your classroom or your home, you can use your tree identification guide to match the samples you collected and see which trees you saw. If you're looking for places to go explore the wildlife and the trees, you can check out the Brewster Trail Guide on Brewster Conservation Trust website. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you learned a lot about trees and how to identify them. I hope you are excited to get out and collect samples and just learn more about them with your class and your family.